Oh, Final Fantasy VI. Of course, I first knew this game as Final Fantasy III, as at that point not every game was coming over to the States. But thankfully, Final Fantasy VI did make it over to the States, and some would argue it's the best JRPG on the Super Nintendo. I don't know that I'd quite go that far, but that's a conversation for another day. I still remember the hype this game had coming out. It's not like it is today. The hype basically amounted to one or two TV commercials and a whole bunch of magazine articles. But a lot of the magazines were very big on the Magitech armor. And a lot of them speculated on how this might be a mechanic throughout the game. Maybe it would be upgradable. Maybe there'd be different models of it available to all your characters to use in certain circumstances. During the intro of the game, there are even extra attacks on the mysterious girl in your party. Will other characters eventually be able to use these attacks? Is it something about her training in the Magitech armor, or is it a different model of Magitech armor she's actually using? It really seemed to hint towards more. Of course, now we know, looking back on it, that it has very, very little impact in the game. You use it in the intro, and then you use it very briefly when the party members split up early on. Other than that, you face it as an enemy in several incarnations. Not even a boss or sub-boss, just as a regular enemy, not even that hard to kill. It's a mech of some kind, or at least that's what the sprites lead me to believe. But apparently mechs have one weakness: swords. And it just seems very strange to me that this Magitech armor is supposed to be a big reason the Empire in the game can go about empiring. But then whenever you encounter it, you either are controlling it very briefly, or you're fighting enemies using it that don't seem to be any stronger than regular enemies. And I don't mean this to be a slight against Final Fantasy VI. It has a great cast of characters, and it did the Emperor Joker storyline like 5 years before DC thought of it. But at the time, I was very excited for this kind of more industrial-looking Final Fantasy that the magazines seemed to be showing off. And I've always wondered to what extent this was intentionally deceptive on the part of the magazines. Was it just early screenshots they were seeing and then speculating? Or was this intentional deception? There's no real way to know. And I'm not interested enough to actually look up who wrote these articles, 30 years ago. But am I the only one that thinks that Magitech armor could have been used a little bit more throughout the story of Final Fantasy VI? Played some kind of role, been some kind of recurring mechanic? Kind of like a simplified version of Front Mission or something? Or kind of like the game Robo-Trek, if you ever played that on the Super Nintendo? Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.